Hello everyone, this is JG here, the author of Blizzard, and welcome to episode 3 of the Blizzard Audiobook. If you'd like to follow along, there's a link to the fanfiction in the description. All that being said, let's get started. Act 2. A new story begins. At the time when stars began to show their glory again in the skies, Shadow arrived at the home of Karol. It was in a mountainous cave which had light emitting from it, like a fire was on. Karol had to be in there. Shadow walked over to the cave. He felt a bit of warmth as he walked inside the cave, which was comforting considering how long he had been out in the snow. Karol's home was quite like a regular home, except that it was all built into a cave. He had a bed, a fireplace, which was lit, a table, a kitchen, a couch, a punching bag, and even a television. Shadow walked through the entrance, and he saw Karol sitting on the couch, reading. Karol saw Shadow and smiled. He ran over to him, grabbed his hand, and shook it. "Never thought I'd see you again, old friend," Karol said happily as he let go of Shadow's hand. "Extreme circumstances have driven me to see you," Shadow replied. "Here, have a seat," Karol said as he and Shadow walked to his kitchen table. Shadow sat down and Karol followed him. "I haven't seen you in forever," Karol exclaimed. "How have you been?" "Same as always," Shadow replied. "Yeah, me too," Karol said. "Those purple beams that have been shooting out of the ground lately have been giving me the creeps, though." "About that," Shadow said. "Do you happen to know anything important regarding those beams? Perhaps something to do with a dragon?" "Important?" Karol paused and thought for a moment. "No, I don't. Sorry. Although, I remember hearing about a dragon as a kid." "Wait. Is this part of those extreme circumstances that drove you to come see me?" Shadow nodded. Then he explained to Karol his whole story, from his initial sprint through the forest, to his finding of the ancient kingdom, how he fought those sick humans, to the fox-like creature, then the ancient murals, and how he saw Karol in the mural underneath the great black dragon with the beams, corrupted souls, and purple energy raining around it. Finally, he spoke of his journey here. Karol was left amazed. "So, I'm caught up in an ancient prophecy," Karol laughed. "I expected as much. Maybe I'll finally have the explanation for my strange powers." Karol rose from his seat. "What do we do now?" "I was thinking," Shadow said, rising as well, "that we locate another one of those beams. Since I found that kingdom with the mural due to a beam, it's not a bad idea to look for another. We can climb up to the top of the mountain to get a better view," Karol said as he shot eyes at the fireplace to extinguish it. "I know the shortest way up. It's not too far from here. Follow me." Shadow followed Karol out of the cave as he requested, and back into the snowy mountains. It was nighttime. The snow covered the mountains like blankets on a bed. Karol took Shadow to a pathway that led up the mountain, which looked like it had been walked many times before. "I sometimes come up here because I like to look at the stars," Karol explained as they walked up the path. The path got even steeper as it turned around the mountain. Eventually, it led to the top, a small wooden lookout area with a fence surrounding it. It was on the mountain like a cap covering a jar. "I had a carpenter from one of the nearby villages make this for me after I saved his home from some robbers," Karol said proudly. "This works," Shadow said. "And I must stay awake the whole night until we find a beam." "The whole night?" Karol shouted disappointedly. "And I forgot my book." Shadow stared at him. "Oh well," Karol sighed. "I like looking at the stars anyway." 6 hours passed, and the stars were starting to fade away. Karol fell asleep at the third hour, not having a will as strong as Shadow, who stayed awake the whole night, keeping his eyes open with ease as he stood on the mountain, searching for one of the purple beams. Shadow felt a chill as a gust of wind blew past him. Then he finally saw it. In an opening in a nearby forest in front of the mountain, Shadow saw a purple beam shooting out of the ground in a forest very much like the one Shadow began his journey in, except this one had animals currently fleeing from the new beam. They seem to know something our heroes do not. "Karol," Shadow said sternly to get him awake. "Huh? What? Oh," Karol said, surprised he fell asleep. "Sorry about that. Look." Shadow pointed to the beam in front of them. "There it is," Karol said. "Wait, that location." Karol thought for a moment. Then he said, "There's a village there. Will all the inhabitants turn into monsters like those humans you saw?" "I don't know," Shadow said as he walked forward towards the beam. "Let's go find out," Karol said. Then he backflipped off the lookout area. Before he hit the ground, he used his ice pillars to create a strip of ice on which he landed and stood. As he began to move, his ice skates activated, and he skidded down the mountain, creating more ice as he went, getting extreme speed towards the forest. Then, he brought his ice slightly above all the terrain so he could avoid crashing into anything while skating. Shadow would not be left behind. He jumped off the wooden platform and activated his air shoes just before hitting the snow, and boosted down the mountain, carefully avoiding rocks and the trees that were there. The beam disappeared, but they both still knew where the beam had been shot out from. Karol continued on his ice path until he reached the forest. Then he leaped off his ice path and jumped onto a tree. Then he used that momentum to leap onto another tree. He kept doing this like a ping pong ball, zooming quickly from tree to tree. Eventually, he leaped off and began his ice path again with even more speed. He traversed it as he did to the one at the beginning of this journey, skiing with radical speeds and avoiding trees and rocks. Eventually, Shadow overtook Karol and arrived at the village first without breaking a sweat. Shadow looked at the village. Just as he thought, there was a strange crater, looking as if it came out of the ground but without leaving any hole. And just as Shadow thought, in the middle of where the beam shot out, there were 5 sentient animals, a dog, 2 rabbits, a cow, and a monkey, standing there, their skin and clothes gray, corrupted like the animals Shadow saw in the corrupted kingdom. "So the beams do cause corruption," Shadow thought. "That mural seems to be trustworthy so far. What does it mean for Just as Shadow thought this, Karol appeared out of the forest, looking tired. "You're late," Shadow said. Karol just looked at him and smiled. Shadow told Karol of his discoveries in the village as they walked over to the corrupted animals. "Hello?" Karol asked them. The The second they heard Karol's voice, they jumped into attack, like a hydra trapping its prey. I guess these guys really don't like me, Karol admitted. Karol ran to fight the cow and the dog, while Shadow teleported to the monkey and kicked him in the face so hard he fell to the ground unconscious. Hey, Karol explained who was fighting the cow. I know these villagers. Try not to hit them to kill, okay? Then he swept the leg of a cow to make him fall, punched the face of the dog to stun him, and he made mice under him to trip. Really? Really? Shadow said sarcastically as he turned to Karol. How would you have me fight them? Like this, Karol said as one of the rabbits ran up to him. Then, as a joke, he made an ice mist with his powers. But the rabbit suddenly stopped when the ice hit him. Karol was just as shocked as this rabbit looked. Then the color of his skin turned brown and his eyes the same as he fell to the ground. Karol sank with him. Are you okay? He asked. The rabbit was shaking, too scared to speak. Shadow! Karol yelled. Shadow was fighting the other rabbit and the cow, which got back up. He fended them off and turned to Karol. It looks like the mist I used somehow cured the corruption of this rabbit. Then let's get the rest of them. Then he lured all the corrupted animals to Karol, which was not hard to do. When the other 4 animals were surrounding Karol, he created a ball of mist in his hand and threw it to the ground, spreading the mist throughout the area and curing the 4 animals. Like the first rabbit, their skin and clothes changed to normal, and on their faces was a look of terror. Some stayed standing, and the others fell to the ground. Then the first rabbit walked over to Karol and Shadow. Thank you for saving us, he said. Don't worry, Karol replied. We're planning to put an end to this corruption for good. If you can, Shadow asked, could you tell us what you saw while you were corrupted, if you saw anything? The memory of it will haunt me forever, the rabbit said. It's all I can think about. I was talking with my friends outside when suddenly we all felt a strange earthquake. Then a purple beam shot out of the ground right from under us. I felt my soul get yanked out of my body and transported to a new dark location, a massive throne room. The roof was open in a circular hole above me, and the sky looked pitch black. No stars. This hideous dragon was standing in the middle of it. He was about as tall as a skyscraper, maybe a little shorter, and as wide as a small building. He spoke some terrible words that I cannot remember. Then these weird men saw me and grabbed me, taking my breath away with their touch. They looked as if they were growing black and purple smoke. The only visible part of their faces was their eyes, which were glowing a horrible purple. Karol gasped. Purple and black smoke? Then he turned to Shadow. It sounds like that freak who gave me those evil powers. Perhaps those powers are worse than we thought, Shadow replied. I told you about that black dragon in the mirror, remember? Yes, the rabbit shouted. He was black. Sorry, I'm forgetting details. Anyway, these creatures, and the dragon's orders, took me out of the room and threw me in a strange gray ocean. They seem to know that that is my greatest fear. What is down there? The rabbit paused for a moment. Then he continued. They kept me there until suddenly I felt my soul get pulled, more naturally and peacefully, back to my body, thanks to you. Karol thanked the rabbit for all the information. Then the animals all stood up and went to tell the rest of the town that they were safe, thanks to the efforts of Shadow and Karol. But after all the animals left, Karol was hit by an invisible force and thrown to the ground.